Yes.
Very few are there.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening and warm welcome to one and all present here. I'm Anida, librarian Kendriya Vidyalaya Ottapalam, and today's moderator. It's my pleasure to welcome Madam Madhu Bhargava, President of SLA India, Mr. S.L. Faisal, General Secretary SLA India, and Mr. G. Aruna Kumar, today's resource person, and all the proud members of SLA India. Today's topic is an online tete-a-tete on authors, books, and e-resources. Mr. G. Aruna Kumar is a very well experienced and resourceful librarian currently working in Chirek International School, Hyderabad. He is an avid reader and actively involved with book clubs in Hyderabad. And he is a judging panel member of the interactive novel writing project of Story Mirror. Aruna Kumar sir is a member of publication team of SLA India. Today, sir will be introducing us new authors, books, and e-resources, and also his experiences during online classes. Now, I request Aruna Kumar sir to take over the session.
Thank you very much, Anita ji. Thank you, event session group of SLA. I'm very proud to be a member of SLA. Thank you. I will be just presenting my PPT and then I will. Okay, is the PPT.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. So, thank you very much. So, today's agenda will be I will be talking about certain books for primary, middle wing, and senior secondary wing, and certain books for the educators. And I will talk about certain authors I generally met during online, and then books that generally helped me as a school librarian. And of course, I'll be talking about certain resources that I found on social media. Okay, that will be the agenda for this for today. I'm going to straight to the books for primary. See, this for today's session, I'm only talking about the books that are meant for primary, particularly related to the books libraries. See, for example, these books, I just gave you a very few number of books. All these books, each book gives you a different story of a book, importance of book, libraries and librarians. See, for example, there is a Thomas and Library. This is about a person when he was young, he was a migrant, and when he was very young, how a librarian in a public library helped him to be part of the library, and then how he got into the reading habits. And of course, he became a professor later, and then he passed away later. That is different story. Now, the Midnight Library talks about how a library is or should be. And I'm not going to give you more details because the pictures in the book will help you to understand this book. And of course, I'm talking about a librarian on the roof. This is about a public librarian who, when she was moved to a different public library, there was no children's section at all. So she wanted to collect public fund and then start a children's section together. But the problem was that there was nobody who was willing to. So what she did is she took a whole kit of tents, etc., etc. She went and then sat on top of the roof of the public library, and then she said, "I'm not going to come down till I raise certain amount of money." So finally, she would collect around 40,000 dollars for the library, and that is her story. And the beautiful illustrations. Now, this one, The Girl Who Hated Books by Manjusha Pawagi. This is the favorite book of mine, which was introduced to me by a stage 3 student. Can you beat it? This particular book talks about a girl who never liked to read books, but her parents were willing to buy more number of books each day. The house is filled with books. Now, one day, when the kitten and then the girl were playing, all the books fell down. Now the magic happened. So many characters from the books came out of the books, and the girl doesn't know what to do. There was so much of chaos, and finally she realized that she started reading each book, and all the characters get back to their books. And then finally, when the parents come, obviously my students will give me an answer. They saw the girl reading. Okay. Now the PT, the cat, checks out the library. Of course, this one talks about how the library functions, and the illustrations are beautifully done. And of course, my favorite one is Library Lion, and you can check it out on YouTube. There's a beautifully made video, which is an open area, so you can just check it out. Library Lion, and then the read aloud, and you can see the pictures moving in front of you, and you can just check it out. This is about a lion that gets into the library, and then how started following the library rules, and finally when the librarian get hurt, and then the lion broke the rules, so she had to go out, and everybody was missing lion in the library. And then finally they brought lion to the library, and then for that reason they have to change the rule a little bit. You can the lion can roar unless and until there is an emergency. Okay. Now the librarian of Basra. This is a true story of a librarian when there was chaos in Iraq. The library was supposed to be burnt down, and then all the books were somewhere. The librarian started collecting all the books and they started transporting them to a different place. And of course, the librarian from the Black Lagoon. And this is from a series of books which is called Black Lagoon series, wherein they take each staff, those are working in any library, any school, and then how they are important. Now, the fun part of this is there is what you call the conception, and then what is called reality. So what happens is in this one, normally what happens is when a student first time comes into the school when they were young, and then they generally learn about so many misconceptions about a particular library or how the librarian will be. Librarian will be very strict, they don't let you talk in the library, etc., etc., etc. Now, once everything the kid heard about the library and librarian, when finally the kid enters into the library, the kid finally watches totally a different picture of the library. So this is about the librarian from the Black Lagoon series, and beautifully illustrated, of course. And this will be definitely good for all the primary. In fact, my secondary students also ask me just once in a while to just show them whenever they wanted to have reasonably good amount of time. So this is about the primary books. Now I'm going back to the middle school. I'm not going to talk much about middle school because all of you are aware of what a collection should be. Now what happens is here I am only talking about the history fiction. Normally what happens is people talk about, we don't find any good fiction for the middle school most of the time, and then historical fiction, how one should be reading. Now I found very interesting books by Devika Rangachari. She has written 3 books. One is Queen of Fire, Queen of Ice, Queen of Earth. And I'm not going to give more details. That depicts from different parts of India. And then she took historical figures and then she wove the whole story. Very well written for middle school. Definitely people will enjoy it. Now, of course, I'm now going to talk about Nandini Sengupta's The Blue Horse and Other Amazing Animals from Indian History. Now, I found this author. I'm going to talk about this author a little bit later, but right now I'm going to talk about this book. Now, this book is about various animals you find in Indian history. For example, if I say Rana Pratap, I'm talking about a horse, right? Now, if I talk about Shivaji, you will know there is a horse, right? So there are so many animals which are related to Indian history. But what happens is generally people don't talk about them. This particular author, she is a journalist basically, because she is interested in history. She started writing about fiction for the young readers or middle school or senior kids. Beautifully written. And of course, I'm going to talk now about history, and which is, I think, somewhere 2020 or 2021, it is being published. Now, this particular book talks about different areas of history, events particularly, and then the authors try to bring out certain recipes relevant to that particular time period. And beautifully written, of course, with colorful pictures. Okay, now I'm going to not going more into details of other books, because I thought historical fiction people will be generally interested in. Now I'm going to talk about for seniors children about books once again, some of them, and then different genre once again. Now, this is Jhumpa Lahiri has written. You know, Jhumpa Lahiri is a writer. She is very famous for her books, particularly English. Now, this particular book, Clothing of Books, this particular book talks about the jackets of the books, and then history and how the books jackets are made, etc., etc. Very thin book, very less priced. Probably everybody should have once at least have a go through about that particular book. And of course, I'm talking about one more book called The Reading List. Now, this is written, this is a debut book of the author. She's a British Indian author. This is a debut book which is published recently. And this particular book starts with a widower who somehow finds, because he is living alone, because his daughters are away, and then his wife was very reader, very good reader, and then his granddaughter and other children at home used to enjoy her talks about the books. Somehow this person tries to go to the library, and then
Excuse me,
somehow,
sir.
yes please.
Sir, you along with this description, if you say the publishers also, it will be easy. I think it will be good. I think Mango Publishers. These books are by Mango Publishers. This.
No, these are okay. I'll do one thing, Darshana.
Yes,
Since
sir.
I didn't keep all these details in this,
Okay.
probably I will put all of them together in a this thing, and then post
As a
it
list.
later in our
Yes, yes.
group.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that will be great. Yeah,
Yeah, so because I just want to give a gist of it, so
Okay,
that
okay.
we can go about it later in our group, and I'll tell you at the end how I'm going to go about it.
Okay. Sorry for the
No
disturbance.
issues, no issues, no issues. Okay, now this is the reading list. Somehow there are 7 books which are connected, and each book has some way connected to the emotion, some way connected to the people. And there are so many characters, somehow they all of them get together these 7 books list. And then what is the story about it? You will definitely enjoy it. Particularly older students should be able to enjoy this story. And now I very recently what happened is this Golans is a series of books published by for science fiction mostly. Now what happened is there is a huge demand from the author's perspective. There are so many authors who are science fiction writers, which is a very amazing fact for me, because I met very recently, almost during this whole lockdown period, amazing writers of India who write science fiction. And what happened for that reason? What happened? This Golans started a South Asian science fiction collection, and this is there are 2 volumes in it. Second volume just recently this week only got released. First one was last year. So there are 2 volumes South Asian science fiction for those people who read and enjoy science fiction. And there is one more author I'm going to introduce you here, Lavanya Lakshmi Narayan. She is basically a a designer of games, gamification person. And she has written one book based on science fiction, analog, virtual, and simulation of your future. And then this is her first book basically, and then the story is really very well written. And then this is based on future of Bangalore. Okay, so these are the books that I really enjoyed reading, and I thought I will share it with you all. Now I'm going to go to some of the educators' book. Now, normally what happens is when you think about educators, and very few people know that there are Indian authors, very widely known, contemporary of Tagore, contemporary of Mahatma Gandhi, and very well written on education. But unfortunately, these books were written in Gujarati, but some of them were translated. Like, for example, there is a book called Diva Swapna. Gijubai Badeka is one of the pioneer of early childhood education in India. But unfortunately, many people don't know about this. And this particular book about a young teacher who wants to introduce certain programs in the school, learning, teaching, and so how the person is get dejected because of various things that happen around. But finally, he brings about changes into the particular school. So this is the story of Gijubai Badeka, and Gijubai Badeka has written several books. Unfortunately, I don't know about them in English, but they were translated into Telugu that I know. And about how parents should be involved, how stories should be involved in the classroom. There are, I think, somewhere around 8 volumes of his collection on education, particularly school education, early education. Now, of course, Toto-chan, everybody knows. Toto-chan is about Japanese Second World War experiment by an educator, and of course Tetsuko Kuroyanagi, who is a Japanese prominent TV personality, and she wrote about her school days. And once upon a story, Diva Swapna and the Gijubai method. Now, what happened is this book is written, I think, last year by Swati Popat Watts, and she's a early childhood education person. And then what she did is she wanted to promote Gijubai. So what happened is she took up Gijubai methodology of storytelling, etc., etc., and then she wrote it for the modern day school. And this is about that. And then, of course, she recently published one more book, and which is going to be out next week, which is called Once Upon a Gift. And this is about Frobel experiments of kindergarten system. And of course, it is going to be out next week. So next one is To Serve with Love. Of course, this is a classic for educators. I'm not going to talk about much. This is about a black teacher in the school. And of course, there is a Dead Poets Society. And Dead Poets Society is about schooling in UK, wherein the group of boys sit together and then try to form a group called a Dead Poets Society. And then what is it about? And then you need to read that book. And of course, there's a Frank McCart's famous Teacher Man, which is a memoir of Frank McCart of his life in schooling as a teacher. And these are the books that I really enjoyed, and I thought I will share it with you. Now, I am now going to talk about certain books that really helped me at the library. Of course, 5 laws of library science, and I think irrespective of what kind of librarian, school, college, doesn't matter. Everybody, I think, should read 5 laws of library science. And the second one is New Education and the School Library. Of course, this one, though it is written quite long ago, I think more than 50 years, but what theoretical perspectives based on which Ranganathan promotes his work is interesting. And I think everybody should read that, except those points that are relevant to his days. But otherwise, there are lots of points which are relevant. I think there are there are timelessness in that those points. And of course, there is one book called This is Ranganathan's biography written by his own son, Yogeshwar. And this particular book, the reason why I am talking about is this particular book talks about how Ranganathan faced problems when he was, promoting libraries. And facing problems is, again, I am talking about, is not new to only to us. It is every time, everywhere. So I think how Ranganathan worked, and then this particular book deals with it, and the kind of passion he had for libraries, and then that motivated me to read that particular book. And of course, I'm now trying to read his own autobiography, which is not available. Okay, and one more thing, this particular book, Velocity of Being. The reason why I want to say this is, what happened is this is a project of Maria Popova and the other person who are co-author. Two of them wanted to do something about libraries, how people get motivated, etc., etc. What they did is they wrote letters to prominent people, and then they asked them to write about the libraries. So each person, prominent person, like for example, musician, scientist, J.N. Goodall, for example, all these prominent people wrote them back, around 120 people wrote them back, how the books and libraries help them to cope with certain situations, and then how they enjoyed their life, and how libraries motivated them. Now, apart from each letter, what they did is they took help from illustrators, prominent illustrators. For each letter, they posted another illustrator based on that particular letter. And it's beautifully written. And of course, this is reasonably little bit costly. So I really enjoyed reading that particular book. So I got my own copy. So, and of course, there are books by Albert Mangulo. One is A Reader on Reading, How to Read a Book. And of course, this will give you what the book might be about. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about one particular book which everybody should have. And the reason why I'm telling is the book itself will tell you how to do things. Like this is Art Matter. Okay. This is written by Neil Gaiman, and this is illustrated by Chris Riddle. Probably you can just check it out on Facebook. Some of the pictures of this particular book are published earlier in Facebook, so that's how I got to know about it. Now, what happened is Neil Gaiman always talks about books and libraries. Now, this particular book talks about how one should go about their own choice. Okay, how one should take care of their query, one should take care of what they wanted to read, etc., etc., etc. Beautifully written, how the libraries should be there, what is the importance of librarian. Very small book, around very less expensive, with the beautiful black and white illustrations. Okay. Now again, finally, I'm going to talk about the Book Whisperer. This talks about books generally, how one should get in touch with books, etc., etc. I'm not going to talk about more about this because I'm already moving ahead of my time. So these are the books that really helped me to be when I was working as a librarian. So now I'm going to talk about some of the authors that I met over a period of time. Now I quickly talk about Michael Rosen, Michael Marpugo, Rick Riordan, Deepak Dalal, Ranjit Lal, Payal Dhar, Anupam Arunachal, Nandini Nair, and of course I'm going to talk here a little bit about Michael Rosen. Michael Rosen, you might have heard of him as a bear hunter, a picture book that is meant for very young readers. Now, Michael Rosen has written very recently one particular book called Many Different Kinds of Love. Now, what happened is he was the victim of COVID. He was 60 plus age, and what happened is he was in ICU because of his personality, because he was very famously known for his books for younger readers, and also he wrote one poem when National Health System of UK was celebrating 60 years. So he wrote a poem on doctors, etc., etc., etc. So now what happened, because of that he is very famous. Now what happened is he was in coma, and then he spent around nearly 2 months in hospital. Now, what happened is doctors, nurses, healthcare professions, they wrote notes and then posted it to him. Once he was back, he put together all of them, put it in a form of a book with poetry, and it will give you so many things about gratitude towards professionals, etc., etc. This particularly talks about national health system in UK. Now, of course, very recently I met Rick Riordan online, and this is about his latest book, which I think I have already posted. Probably, otherwise I'll post it there once again. So now, what happened is he took. So the good thing about this is that he took Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and then he tried to bring out a new book based on that. So this is about him. So of course, all of you know Rick Riordan writes for mythology. So again, I'm going to talk now here Araifa Tehsin. Araifa Tehsin is a very young writer. I met her somewhere in 2 years back in Bangalore. Now she writes about nature. Now, you can see the title, Do Tigers Drink Blood? And you can understand what kind of books she writes. Very enthusiast of nature. And I'm going to here talk about Nandini Sengupta again here. Now, I met her very enthusiast about history. And then she wrote the Gupta Empire, 3 books on Gupta Empire, which 3 of them are really very well written. And then she does research and she works as a journalist in Times of India. And then she stays in Pondicherry. And of course, I talked about Devika Rangachari, who writes historical fiction for children. Now, I'm going to talk here 2 books which are translations. The reason why I'm touching upon translations is translations are also important. Like, for example, Delhi Silolakmi, very recently the author got an award. And then this particular book is being translated into English by Nandakumar and then Fatima. I met them online. The way they translated is amazing. And of course, the Punachi, Perimal Murugan, you might have heard of Perimal Murugan who writes in Tamil. But this particular Punachi is being not translated. He wrote it in English for younger readers. Beautifully illustrated. Okay. So now I met the translator and then the author, both of them when they came to Hyderabad Literary Festival. So the reason why I'm talking about meeting authors is when you meet an author, and then, for example, if you are talking about books, most of them were very amazed that I'm working at a school library. So, that gives a little bit of boost to morale. Okay, now these are some of the resources that I found interesting. Most of them I found on internet. So I'm going to talk now about this for a couple of minutes. I hope I have, I think probably if I can take 10 more minutes, Darshana.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now the first one is Future Reads. Now, what happens is the Future Ready Librarians talks about 21st century librarians. In US particularly, they talk about future ready schools, part of it is future ready librarians, etc., etc., etc. This particular group talks about so many different things. They have their own documentation for 21st century librarians. They talk about reading, etc., etc., etc. You will find lots of resources which are very free. Some of them are meant for their members. So you can download some of the resources there. And then there is one Parag Reads. I think many of you might have know about this. This Parag Reads is Tata Group which education wing, which started for Indian reading sake. They started collecting resources and then they gave awards also for authors, Indian authors particularly. They collect lots of resources and they do compile books list for the readers for primary, middle, etc., etc. They have also allotted some awards for the illustrators as well. So you can go through that. And then of course Bookworm Goa, which is having a very good library. And of course they also, the members have the one short-term course for the school librarians, basically. They also talk about it. And next one is the Funky Rainbow. The reason why I'm talking about Funky Rainbow is this is an independent bookstore, and then they have a website. Probably you can just check the link. They organize every week, every Saturday, except these 2 weeks because of vacation. But otherwise, they do have a weekly session of book bazaars. They bring about authors, different authors, and then talk about books they are writing, they wrote, etc., etc., etc. Beautifully organized, and then they also involve readers. If they have any questions, they can ask, and they can clarify their doubts from the artist. And then very enthusiastic, the moderator. They have a YouTube channel as well. Probably you can have a look at it. And again, I'm going to talk about Arvind Gupta. Arvind Gupta is widely known science person, wrote and then prepared toys, and then some of these things meant for readers, particularly science related to the schools, and with basic minimum things, not very expensive things. Okay, and of course, book fairs are the major things. In fact, I attended the National Book Fair of Delhi, and then I met wonderful authors over there, and then they shared the list, etc., etc. And apart from it, Jaipur Literary Festival, Hyderabad Literary Festival, Chandigarh, Bangalore, Nagpur, Pune, Dehradun, Mussoorie, all these people are having now. In fact, each state got their own literary festival running between, say, September to Jan end. You can find them online, and then some of them are free because of this COVID. Most of them are free. You can interact with the authors. You will talk to them. You can talk to them. Of course, I'm going to talk now here. ISLA and School Library Association, and then SLJ, School Library Journal. They have lots of events happen, but these are based on US timing. Probably you can just check it out and then see. What happens is some of them are meant for general people. So where you can register, even if you miss the session, you will get the recording. And that's how I met Rick Riordan. Of course, you have the publications called HarperCollins, Walker, Random House, Decade, Dragonfly, Tulika, Katha, you name it, there are so many. Rupa. Rupa generally brings about Ruskin Bond mostly. And Speaking Tiger, Manchi Pustakam is a Hyderabad-based publication. Those people are generally do for Telugu books, but they have English books as well. You can just check it out, their site. Very widely known people, those two people, Mr. Suresh and I think Vijayalakshmi. Both of them are very passionate about schools and then books and libraries. In fact, I came to know about Gijubai Badeka from them only. And of course, Eklavya for Hindi, mostly for primary. You can just check. And there is one mother tongue twister, which is on social media. You can just check their site, either Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. These people, very young lady called Mohini Gupta, she conducts a session from various translators. Very recently, I heard about writers, translators for younger readers. Okay. No, the reason why I'm not talking many publishers is that many people know about certain authors like Sudhamurthy, Ruskin Bond. These are very popularly known. So I don't want to talk about those people, and then it doesn't mean that I don't like them or anything like that. But I know them, and then also they are very widely known. And of course, these are my some of the pictures that I'm going to show. And this is Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. I am a big fan of her. Can you guess who is this person? I'm laughing aloud. Can anybody?
Me too, sir. I do love her books.
Of course. No, the next person, I'm laughing aloud. My children never believe that I am with that person.
Oh,
He is Lebanese Snicket.
okay.
And I am an amazing person. The kind of stories he writes, the kind of passion for books or for children, and amazing. Of course, I'm talking about here one particular book, Three Rays. It is about three generations of Ray's family. Satyajit Ray and his father, Sukumar Ray and his grandfather. All of them were writers and then associated with books. And maybe, unfortunately, many people don't know about them. So what happened is, this is for 100th year of birthday of Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray's son brought out his collections. Both he translated, Satyajit Ray translated himself of his fathers and grandfathers, and some of the collection he has himself translated. He put together and then published very recently. I attended this session, and then this is an amazing session. And then I heard so many things which I never heard of Satyajit Ray. And in fact, I spoke to my students because Satyajit Ray wrote science fiction at the very early in India, and many people don't know about that. Of course, detective stories of Feluda, which are very famous in India. But anyway, the reason why I introduced this is my students really loved when I talked about race. And of course, this is the latest book that I talked about of Rick Riordan, which I attended very recently. Okay, and these are the things that I wanted to share with you. And my plan is that I am compiling the whole collection of Ruskin Bond. I collected around 800 stories so far in 130 plus books. I'm compiling them together, including Michael Bartolgo. And then I have compiled my own list of books, around 1,000 so far. I'm still in the making. Probably I'm just trying to combine how I can share with everybody in the group. Okay, thank you very much for your session. And okay, this is very gist of it, so that you will try and then get into some of them. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
sir.
what I do is, yes, yes, Faisal sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
It
Actually,
was a lot of information you
yeah,
poured in. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of
because
doubts.
because a lot of librarians are not getting enough time to read. But if we are
That's
getting
right.
such a list, wonderful list of books that we must read. These are all must-read books, I think. So anyway, when we
So
are getting time, we will go through all these things. If it is available online, please give links also. Okay, just like
see,
is
unfortunately, all of them are copyrighted
yeah,
ones.
I know.
Probably what I do is, like for example, Library Lion, I told you that
Yeah, Lion is
those
available,
things
yeah.
that are those things which are available
yes.
free, I will definitely share.
That I am saying, yeah. So and I suggest you to, just like you told us that you have been selecting nearly 100 stories and 1,000 stories and books, etc. So if you can share all these things with others, that will be a wonderful
Yeah,
thing.
I'm just trying to, Faisal, I'm trying to understand how can I, because there's a huge list of 1,000 books,
Yeah.
huge list. So I'm just trying to understand how I can, is it okay if I put somewhere in a repository kind
So
of
we are
stuff?
sure that you are also
Yes,
reading all
that
these
is-
1,000 books.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, all these things I've read.
Yeah, we know.
Great.
So I read around 200 books per year. So,
Great.
so because I don't listen to the news. I don't have a TV. I don't have it.
Yeah, because in libraries, when if some students ask us, sir, have you read this one? Normally we used to say that, okay, I have read. Okay, and I am suggesting this one, etc., etc. Because we are not getting enough time, as you know. That,
Definitely. See,
along
the,
with that,
the point is, the reason why I shared is that many of us don't get time, unfortunately.
exactly.
But the thing is, I try to squeeze. Like for example, I most of the time I travel in public transport.
Mhm.
1 to 1.5 hours I get time.
Oh,
If I'm traveling in normal days, 1 to 1 minimum 2 hours I get to travel in public transport.
oh, great.
So I read most of my readings during this.
Oh,
Okay, thank you very much
thank you.
for the time.
Thank you, sir.
I'm
Thank
very
you,
glad
sir.
that I'm part of the SL wherein I'm trying to gain more things. And one more suggestion, please try to be on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media that you find it. You may not share with every personal thing. I avoid sharing personal things, but there are amazing resources that you find. And as if when I'm thinking of meeting Sudha Murthy, she's there online, because many publishers, they, for the sake of promoting their books, they're bringing authors, and then some of them are free.
Yeah.
So those things I keep on sharing on Facebook for that reason. Whenever I'm attending or whenever I get time to already finish something, because some of them are on alternative timings. Like for example, if it is UK or US, we may not get time. But for example, I attend London School of Economics somewhere around 9:30 to 10:30 it starts.
Oh.
So it may be difficult, but once you put in then you can get to the recording. You can just show it later. In fact, Ricriadan's recording I may share with you, because it is in public forum.
So we can share these live things with students also, if it is possible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, thank you, sir. Thank you for introducing such wonderful books and authors to us.
So in
The
between,
session-
Anida, in between, I would like to ask Mr. Samir Kapadia. Sir, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. So because you are coming from this publication sector, so we would like to hear from you how we can connect with others.
Sorry, I could not hear you.
Now, because you are coming from a publication background, just a publishing industry background.
Yes.
Yeah, we would like to know your views on how we can interact with others or connect with others.
Yeah. In fact, there is one new initiative that I think is very good for schools, students, and authors.
Yeah.
I'm getting authors to map a school's curriculum
Okay.
with their books. So we are doing authors a book session, a book which is mapped to the child's curriculum.
Okay.
So somewhere we are making the whole concept. It could be a science concept, it could be a history concept, environment also, or whatever. We are making it broad-based.
Oh.
We are making it come more alive
Acha, okay.
through fiction and facts all put together,
Oh.
and making it a lot more enjoyable and also educative at the same time.
Okay, fine. So it will be just like you are connecting with all schools, or how it will work?
Schools, yes, that's right, with schools.
So any business model, or just like simply you are doing all these things, just like?
Sorry, come again?
No. I am asking, is there any business model behind this? Just like
Yes, I mean, obviously, we are asking children to read the book, to buy the book, read the book before the session.
Okay.
They are a lot more prepared, because before COVID, whenever we did any author session,
Yeah.
only those few who are very, very avid readers
Yes.
would be very enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
So if you see, the quality of interaction was at a very elementary level, I would say,
Yeah.
because the children were not connected, neither to the author, neither to the topic. But here we are looking at a very dedicated audience.
Okay. Yeah.
The author is also a lot more interested in talking to those who are interested in reading.
Okay.
Then there is so much more enrichment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there may be a selected list of books is connected with the curriculum. No? You're going to.
No, you see, I'll give you an example. So there is a book called Across the Line
Okay.
by this wonderful author called Nayanika Mahatani. Now the story is set during the times of the partition of the country.
Okay.
Now in history, regardless of the board, the partition is spoken about.
Oh.
Yeah. So the base is partition, but the stories of a girl in Pakistan and a boy in India, and a thing common to both of them is that they both love cricket.
Okay.
Now what she's done is, when you do a session with her on this particular book, for example, she speaks about how the partition of the country was preponed by a year
Oh.
because of one man's selfishness,
Mm-hmm.
Lord Mountbatten.
Yeah.
It was originally to be 1948.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was, why did he prepone it? He preponed it because if he had left India in 1947 and would have gone back to England,
Mm-hmm.
there was another posting, a very senior diplomatic posting, which was coming up in the British bureaucracy,
Okay.
and he was aiming for that.
Oh.
For his selfish need,
Mm-hmm.
now, preponing it by a year is like what is currently happening in Afghanistan, where America just said one fine day we are leaving.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Now the mess, the bloodshed which took place,
Okay.
cannot be avoided.
Yeah, quite interesting.
Yeah. Now so there was a child. Now look at how interesting this conversation goes when the child has read the book. So this child stood up and asked her. He asked the author, "Ma'am, do you believe in the laws of karma?"
Okay. Uh-huh.
The author was taken back. She said, "Yes, I do." So the child asked again, "What happened to Mountbatten?"
Mm-hmm.
She said, "It's very interesting. He was blown up by the Irish Republican Army
Oh.
when he was traveling in a boat."
Okay.
You see, as we say, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
So what he did between India and Pakistan, he played a similar game between England and Ireland.
Oh.
But Irish Republic Army got better of him. So, this is the kind of interaction
Yeah.
that's possible when we are talking to a select and an interested audience.
Yeah.
And when you are mapping a book to a curriculum.
Very good. Yeah, exactly. Quite interesting. So we are looking for that also. Yeah.
Do let me know if anyone of you would be interested. So currently we are talking to a school for a book, Shabnam Meenwala,
Okay.
and it is she has mapped it to the environment part of their curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many possibilities,
Yes.
so many
Yeah.
things that can be
So
done.
we hope that we can have a session with you also how to connect books with curriculum. And
Oh, sure.
because, yeah.
Why not? Why not? Definitely.
PLC team, please note down this also.
Looking forward.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Any other questions?
You are
Yeah.
muted. Anita, you are muted.
Thank you, Arun Kumar sir, and thank you, Samay sir. And on behalf of event team SLA, I extend my sincere thanks to you, all of you, and thank you all the participants. Please fill the feedback form that is shared here in the chat box, and we will meet again in this platform with a new topic, definitely. Until then, goodbye to all. Thank you all once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.